fans, Haywood Highsmith has arrived, and he might have actually taken Jaime Jaquez Jr.'s playoff rotation spot. I am Nic Rohloff. This is the Heat Report. And after yesterday's big win at home over the New York Knicks, 109-99, there's a lot of takeaways, including Haywood Highsmith's play, Jaime Jaquez only playing 12 minutes, Terry Rozier, and where Miami stands in the playoff seeding with just 7 games remaining in the regular season. We'll break that all down on today's show, but make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we are going to be the #1 spot for Heat playoff coverage. We're live for every single Miami Heat basketball game, and when the season comes to a close, which will make me very sad, we'll also ramp up our coverage for the NBA draft, free agency, trade rumors. So join the channel because if you want to be in the know on anything surrounding your Miami Heat, this is the spot for you. But I think it is something we have to talk about after yesterday's game because the thing that stood out to me the most is how well Haywood Highsmith has played over his last 5 games for Miami, but specifically how much he was trusted yesterday and how he was in that closing lineup alongside Caleb Martin, Bam, Terry Rozier, and Duncan Robinson at times. Highsmith was phenomenal. He played 28 minutes against New York, had 14 points on 6 of 11 shooting, 2 big shots from beyond the arc, alongside 8 rebounds. And this is where I want to talk about Jaime because the stud rookie, who has been phenomenal for Miami all year long, only played in 12 minutes. Out of the 9 players that checked into the game for the Heat yesterday, Jaquez played the least amount of minutes by far. The next closest, well, that was Kevin Love at 16 minutes. How about Nikola Jovic? Quickly, we won't talk about him too much today, but he actually doubled up Triple J's minutes yesterday. He played 25. By the way, he was also phenomenal, giving out 6 assists, spacing the floor, but that's a different conversation for a different day. He will be your starting power forward in the postseason. You can bank on that. But I do want to focus in this conversation on Highsmith and if he earned himself the spot that Jaime Jaquez Jr. was anticipated to have when it comes to the postseason. Because what Haywood brings that Jaime has not over the past couple months is 3-point shooting, which is something Miami is always desperately searching for. It's the reason why they made their run last year in the playoffs as the 8th seed. People want to make it all about Jimmy Butler, and sure, yes, he went nuclear, and that's the reason why you beat Milwaukee. But the reason why you're able to win 2 more series on top of that, outside of Jimmy Butler's heroics, is because the step up in 3-point shooting. Miami was a bottom 3 team in the entire NBA last season in 3-point shooting. They were shooting 33-34%. That was horrible. But in the postseason, they stepped it up to 38-39% from deep, which is why they were able to make a run, because they were just absolutely bashing their opponents from beyond the arc. And the Heat have done that for the most part in the regular season, which has kept their offensive afloat, even though they're one of the worst teams in the league at finishing around the rim. You could thank Duncan Robinson for that. You could thank a little bit of an improvement from Bam from 3, and you can thank Nikola Jovic as well when Tyler Herro's been out. But Highsmith, if he's able to give you the offense that he has been over the past 5 games, which has been phenomenal, over his last 5 games where he's played 27.9 minutes a night, he is averaging 15 points a game. And those stats might be a little bit inflated. I'm not going to try to come up here and lie to you guys. There's been some blowouts for Miami, so he's gotten a lot of run in that game against Cleveland and Portland and Washington. But overall, he's averaging 15.4 points per game over his last 5, shooting 61.2% from the field and 69.6% from beyond the arc, while having an average plus minus of plus 10.2. He has been phenomenal over his last 5 games, and his offense has been a main part why, but he's also providing you with elite defense. Like, he held Jalen Brunson when being the closest defender to the Knicks star point guard yesterday, 0 of 3 shooting. Also forced him to have a couple uncharacteristic turnovers as well. Highsmith checked into those games off the bench and did an excellent job on the MVP candidate from New York. Also, before we move on, Bam also held Jalen Brunson 0 for 4 from the field when being the closest defender. Bam should be the depoy. I don't give a shit about Rudy Gobert or Wembanyama or block shots. No one has a bigger impact on their specific team defensively more than Bam Adebayo, but that's also a different conversation for a different day. But Highsmith has been terrific between his three-point shooting, which if he's going to be able to give you even 40% from beyond the arc, you have to take a look at him to be that wing 3/4 off the bench over Jaime, because Haywood's also a better defender. And the thing that Jaquez brought you was timely cuts and better offensive movement and better spacing on the floor. But if that's no longer the case, it's hard to justify putting him into the game over Haywood Highsmith. So let me know your thoughts down below. Should Haywood Highsmith take the spot in the playoff rotation of Jaime Jaquez Jr.? I love Triple J more than anyone, and I'm like you guys where I want him to succeed. But for the betterment of this team, I think it might be Haywood Highsmith. Let me know. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Another part that I want to just talk about Highsmith here before we move on to Terry Rozier and the playoff seeding, as well as a little update on Tyler Hero, is can we talk about the stones on number 24? Are you kidding me? If you just flash back to last night's game against New York, the Heat were up by double digits for most of the game. The Knicks, down 16 at one point early in the third quarter, battled all the way back to tie the game at 92 with just 3.5 minutes to go. And you know what Miami needed? They needed a bucket after not scoring for almost 5 minutes. They didn't make a field goal. And they didn't turn to Jimmy Butler. They didn't turn to Bam, who basically gave you nothing offensively yesterday, by the way. They were both phenomenal on the defensive side of the floor, but it was the Rozier show on offense, and those two stars, they got to give you more in these big games. But Highsmith, with 15 seconds left on the shot clock, it's not like the timer was ticking down. Highsmith takes a left wing three right over Jalen Brunson, tied at 92, and knocked it down to put the Heat up by 3, and Miami never looked back after that. The stones on Highsmith to take that shot in that moment with so much time left on the shot clock in the biggest moment and biggest game of the season thus far and knock it down with confidence. Yeah, if you're getting a Highsmith that is that confident in his offensive game to pull that shot and make that shot, you can't convince me this guy does not deserve playoff minutes with how well he plays on the defensive side of the ball and how he works boxing people out and getting boards. He gets in the mix. Highsmith was incredible yesterday, and I think he might be taking Jaquez's playoffs minutes. We'll see. These next 3 games are going to be massive for Miami in terms of standings against Philadelphia on Thursday, Houston on Friday, and Indiana on Sunday. If Highsmith continues to play more than Triple J in these 3 games, I think it's going to be official, and we'll make sure that is well documented for you guys. Before we get into the later half of today's show, we are sponsored by PrizePicks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in North America. Yes, it is over. March, not here anymore, but we all know the biggest action on the hardwood is actually taking place in April. Final Four in both the men's and women's tournament is tipping off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday for the Final Four in both both tournaments, but also the NBA playoff seeding. Playoffs beginning in the second half of April. You do not want to miss a thing and make watching these games so much more fun when you play PrizePicks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app. All you do is pick more, you pick less. It's that easy. 2 or more player stat projections, and you can actually win up to 1,000 or 100 times your money now at PrizePicks. So get started today. Use code CLNS to get a first deposit match up to $100 when you download the app, or go in the description and comments of today's video. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use code CLNS. Get a first deposit match up to $100. It is the best daily fantasy sports app and platform out there. All right, let's talk about Terry Rozier now, because this dude, he was on one last night, but let's be honest, he's been playing this good over his last 10 games for Miami, specifically yesterday against New York. Game high 34 points. 10 of 15 from the field, 8 of 11 from 3. And it's not like he was just taking open 3-pointers that were they were daring him to shoot. This dude was taking step backs, one-legged sidestep right wing daggers, that one shot opening up the third quarter where there was 1 second left on the shot clock and they just threw it to Rozier and he's fading away to his left on Dante DiVincenzo and just hoists it up and nets it. He was making the most difficult shots that I have ever seen. And that is why Pat Riley made this trade just a couple months ago, because Miami lacked a scoring threat in the backcourt that could give them these tough buckets in tough situations. We were hoping Tyler Hero was going to take that step, but matter of the fact is he just hasn't been on the court and he hasn't shown the ability to do it consistently. Terry Rozier has been able to do that. And yes, he started off his Heat tenure very, very poorly. There is no debating that. But if you just look at what he has done over the last 10 games, when he's finally found his role and found his home in this Heat offense, he's averaging 20.4 points per game, shooting 45% from the field, and more importantly, shooting 43% from beyond the arc. That is what has impressed me the most, is his three-point shooting, because over his first 10 games with the Miami Heat, he was just shooting 36% from the field and 25% from three. So he's gotten back. The positive regression was always there, and it was anticipated. But the fact that we're starting to see it at this high of a level just elevates the ceiling of this Heat team. I know a lot of people are going to make noise about the team already being in the play-in again and being the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference standings as of now. But I'm telling you right now, this Heat team is more dangerous and better than last year's. I just am, because think about it. The Heat didn't have Tyler Hero last year. They didn't have Nikola Jovic. They didn't have Terry Rozier. They didn't have Jaquez Jr. if he's going to give you minutes in the postseason either. You were battling out there with the same roster, but then you had Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Kyle Lowry. You also really didn't have Duncan Robinson. He came off the bench and had some big games against Boston and Denver. For the most part, he was not a part of the rotation. So the fact that you get a full-on Duncan Robinson, Terry Rozier, Jovic, Jaquez, and now we're seeing even Highsmith get more in the action. Like, those four guys, those five guys are going to be much more impactful in the big moments during this postseason run than Gabe Vincent and Max Strus and Kyle Lowry were last year. Those three were fine. Those were great. They had big moments, specifically against the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round. But I'll take the current Miami Heat roster right now over the one last year. And is that me saying that the Heat are locked in and guaranteed to make another run in the postseason? No, because it depends on matchup, and some other teams got better in the Eastern Conference. But you can't tell me that when this team is clicking and they're working together, that they are not a better overall and more complete team than last season's. I just won't hear another different story, and it's because of Terry Rozier and what he could bring in that backcourt. The Heat haven't had a point guard like him since Goran Dragic, and if I'm going to be honest, Dragic was terrific in the 2019-20 season, specifically the bubble, which propelled the Heat to the NBA Finals in the first year of the Jimmy Butler era. But, I mean, the way Terry's been playing over the last 10, 15 games, he's better than what Goran Dragic was giving you as well. And I just want to give some salutes to Terry Rozier because he has been playing phenomenal. And if he continues this play, Miami's just going to be dangerous and dangerous. So get in the comment section and spam your twos for Scary Terry. All right, before we head out of here, quick update on Tyler Hero. He has already been ruled out for Thursday's game against the Philadelphia 76ers. That should come as no surprise. I have no clue when he's coming back. I'm just hoping it's going to be before the postseason because it's going to be hard for me to justify bringing back Hero in the middle of the playoffs. It is. And if he does come back, it's going to have to be off the bench because you can't disrupt the starting lineup with someone who hasn't played since February 24th, 25th, 23rd, something in that range. So I just don't know if Tyler's going to be able to get his rotation spot back that he wanted unless he comes back before the regular season concludes. And I do want to check in on the standings too as well because Miami does still sit 7th in the standings, 42-33, but they are only a half game back of Indiana for the 6th spot. They're a game and a half above Philadelphia for the 8th spot. So if you beat the Philadelphia 76ers on Thursday, you basically lock up no worse than 7 because you beat the Sixers, you win the season series against them, you put 2.5 games in between you and Philly, and you should be able to hang on to that 7th spot with only 6 games remaining. But obviously Miami's trying to get out of the play-in and secure themselves a playoff spot so they don't have to play a game leading up to that weekend in April 18th, 19th, 20th. Like I said, that Sunday game against the Pacers is massive to where that can really find out who ends up being in the play-in and who's not. But I'm not going to also dispute the fact that Miami can't catch a New York or an Orlando. Listen, if things currently stand, the Heat are only 2 games of bet both the Magic and the Knicks. The Magic don't have an easy schedule, by the way. They have to play the Pelicans. They have to play the Clippers. They have to play the Bucks. They have to play the Rockets like Miami does. Like if Orlando falters here down the stretch, it wouldn't shock me if Miami was able to climb above the Orlando Magic. So there is a realistic situation and scenario here where Miami gets to the 4 or 5 seed if New York continues to struggle as they've lost 3 in a row, or if Orlando does go struggling down the stretch. I will say Indiana has a pretty easy schedule in their last 6-7 games, so if they continue playing good basketball, I bet the Pacers will be avoiding the play-in. But you never know. If Miami can go 6-1 in their final 7, that'll put the pressure on the rest of these teams not to have a couple slip-up games, and then Miami will be right on their heels. I think it's possible, man. I really do. The Heat's final 7 games, so we officially know here, it's Thursday Sixers, Friday Rockets, Sunday Pacers, the following Tuesday against the Hawks, then Wednesday against the Mavericks, Friday Raptors, and then Sunday against the Raptors as well to close out the season. You should beat Toronto twice as they're kind of tanking at this point. You definitely should beat Atlanta. So there's 3. If you're able to beat Indiana and Philly, which are 2 basic playoff games in my opinion, so if you treat them with the respect it deserves and you beat those 2 guys, well then you're 5-0, and if you just split Houston and Dallas, well then there's your 6-1. I think it's possible the way Miami's been playing as of late, 3-game winning streak for the Heat. It's pretty good. Ironically enough, I'm actually looking at ESPN. The Heat have a 3-game win streak. That is the current highest win streak in the entire Eastern Conference. I'm not shitting you. The rest of the teams are kind of going up and down as well. So 3-game win streak for Miami is the highest in the East. Let's see if they can keep it going on Thursday against the Sixers. The Heat will have to play Joel Embiid. We will be live for that game. So make sure you subscribe, join the channel, and join us for the last 7 games of the season because it's going to be a wild, wild sprint to the finish line. And you won't want to be updated anywhere else other than Miami Heat Report.